going live. All right, ladies and gentlemen, here we are. We're ready for the big event we've all been waiting for. And we've got the challenger, Dub WUBS, challenging Brick JONESEY to a debate here regarding limited public forum, which is Dub WUBS' position, and 1A absolute, which is Brick JONESEY's position. I'm going to be your moderator tonight, your host, Bzwatchdog. This is my channel, so we've already got a format where these guys are going to go ahead and have a statement each on each scenario that I'm going to be providing them tonight, and then they're going to go ahead and refute each one, and then at the very end we're going to have a refute and a closing argument. So it's going to give you guys an opportunity to kind of talk a little bit about the scenario, and then overall at the end before we go into closing arguments, and then we'll open it up for a Q&A for panel for everybody that's here. I'm going to kind of go ahead and I was going to take 5 minutes, but it really only took me about a minute, so I'm going to relinquish that time. I just ask that everybody act civil in the chat. Everybody acts somewhat civil up on the debate. No guarantees what may happen tonight, guys. So with further ado, I'm going to go ahead and let Brick introduce himself, and then Dub WUBS introduce himself. You guys can take, since I'm going to relinquish his time, I'll give you guys each 2 minutes to do so instead of 1 minute at this point. So with that being said, Brick, you have the floor.
Excellent. All right, man. Yeah, I appreciate you letting me up here and to speak a little bit about some of the things that I believe in regards to our country. I'm a 1A absolute believer. I do believe in 1A absolute. My channel is Brick JONESEY. I know that BZ and I have talked for quite some time. He may know some of my positions, but ultimately I am my own man. I stand in my own square, and I have no problem explaining to any one of you my position. And so I'll let that go with that, and maybe you'll get to know about me a little bit more. Thank you.
Yeah, my name is Dub WUBS. We got into a little slight argument, so we decided to have a little debate panel about the forum doctrine and versus absolute free speech. And so that's where we're going to go. I know, I mean, I've been watching the 1A stuff for, I don't know, a good decade, off and on. The last, I don't know, 5 years more so. The last 2 years been more vocal and involved, which is where a lot of you people probably know me from. So with that, I think we just have a core disagreement on the fundamentals, but maybe we can find some similarities. Maybe we can find some diehard differences. And, you know, at that point, we'll just, the main goal here is not to win or lose, but to, I guess, give our cases the best we can so that you guys can make your own decisions for yourselves, and maybe you guys can enlighten us a little bit more on where we failed to meet the burden. So it's about what I got to say for that.
Okay. Go ahead and mute your mic for a second. All right. I'm just bringing everybody back up for a second. So basically, we're going to try to keep this as smooth as we can. We're going to go ahead and allow Brick to start with his opening statement. You're going to get 4 minutes on the floor. to say what you got to say regarding your position, and then we'll move over to Dub WUBS to get his 4 minutes in. So go ahead, Brick. It's all you.
Our rights are God-given. Our founders, the founders of this country, recognized this. This is just reality. Our rights are called unalienable rights, given to us by the God of nature. The rights afforded to us in the Constitution of the United States are supposed to be considered natural rights, much like the basic rights expressed in the Declaration of Independence: life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. The founders wrote about the laws of nature in accordance with the sensible philosophy of John Locke. In my opinion, there are some basic realities that line up with the laws of nature. Things like what goes up must come down. Humans cannot breathe underwater, and that all men should be able to speak freely in order to gain peace about them. I have a deep compassion for those who do not have this peace, and I want to allow them the time to speak to that peace rather than preventing that means through force, even if it means hearing out an outright lie and or threat. I wish that every man, woman, and child is able to find peace, and not for the reason of force, but for the reason of desire. I too desire peace. And peace for men requires communication. Limiting communication would be limiting that peace. There is no guarantee that people will not be offended or incited due to limiting speech or compelling it for that matter, and thus becoming incited to violent actions. Hell, I've seen people angered over silence. Besides that, even courts agree that words alone cannot be considered criminal. Do not sacrifice liberty for safety, especially to the government. Thank you.
Okay, let me stop that and bring up Dubs. Hang on, Dubs. Give me 2 seconds. All right. And ready when you are, Dubs.
So when we're looking at limiting speech, we're looking at a whole host of factors. It's more than just being able to say what you want when you want without repercussions. I think it bases itself on the fact that you do have the right to speak freely, but there will be consequences. And at the same time, at what point does your speech and your communication infringe on other people's rights as far as freedoms that they may have? Situations that they may find themselves into. The fact that someone who's trying to be private, doxing them is morally absolutely unacceptable. You're putting people in harm's way. I didn't write a speech like Brixie did. I have a bunch of other notes. I think that when we're talking about the complexity of 250 years or so worth of people's speech and laws and people ruling on it, I think there's a strong argument for limiting your conduct, your speech, and your behavior in certain contexts, and solely within the government, because private space is private, and the person who owns that private space has all authority over that land. So right now we're talking strictly governmental authority to limit, restrict, and other means punish you for those actions. I also understand that speech is more than just words. It can be written, symbolic, gestures, and there's other implications to it, far exceeding just the normal day-to-day apparatus, what you walk into. Like say, you can go into a grocery store and, well, I mean, that's private, obviously, but you can go into places and you can speak freely. There will be consequences. You can't threaten people, things like that. Because at what point does your right to speak freely infringe on someone else's right to feel safe, to be heard themselves? And so essentially that's essentially the standpoint I'm coming from.
Are you done, Dubs?
Yes, sir.
Okay. All right. Hang on 1 second. I just wanted to make sure you were done before because you still had about 40. You had
No, you're
about
good.
50. So, all right, guys. So we're gonna go ahead and do the next. We're gonna do a scenario. We're gonna have a little debate on scenario. The first scenario is gonna be a limited public forum, and the scenario is gonna be the city council meeting. So I've got you opening up for 3 minutes on, your position, on what you should be able to say, how you should be able to say it, and basically what you were just talking about. But we're going to narrow it down to a city council meeting, and just let me know when you're ready.
Let's go.
Go.
So a city council meeting is represented as a limited public forum. What that means is that it's a government controlled operation where you have the right to address your city council, but it has to be within the bounds of topic to a degree where it doesn't create an incitement of violence or a disruption to the legitimate function of the government, and it does not impede on anyone else's rights to speak freely beyond that. A couple things here. Perry Education Associations versus Perry Local Educators Association, 1983 was when the public doctrine forum was formed. And then Ward v. Rock against Racism, 1989, Time, Place, Manner forum was formed. And so what this means is that you have the right to speak, but it has to be relevant to the mission of the public forum, so that it does not create chaos, so that it does not create confusion, so that it does not incite violence, and so there's not an immediate disruption to the main objective of the city council meeting. Now, with that, all limited public forums, they have to abide by a viewpoint discrimination. So viewpoint discriminatory risk, which means you cannot tell someone they can't say something because you don't like it, and then allow the person before you to say the exact same thing, but because you like it, you allow it. Now, I would like to liken that to Lawrence Accountability and the dreaded rabble rouser. They often go to public meetings. Often people carry signs, and for some reason, because of their signs make other people feel uncomfortable or irritated, or whatever the cause may be, they're not allowed to hold a sign up. And that would be violation of a content neutral restriction on speech.
15 seconds.
So with that, everything has to be content neutral and for a very specific, tailored governmental purpose.
All right. Pulling you back up. And Brick, hang on 1 second. All right, Brick, let me know when you're ready. 3 minutes. You muted.
incitement, right? I spoke a little bit about it on the introduction. The problem with the viewpoint of incitement, and even the courts will tell you that intent is one of the hardest things to prove, and especially if someone keeps silent, right? Now, if somebody does speak about an issue, right, short of admitting fault, right, that they actually were engaged in something that finds them at fault for a crime, a real statute breaking, or code or ordinance, you're not going to be able to prove that anybody did anything wrong, according to a statute, code, ordinance. When we're talking about relevancy and topics, and we're looking at the whole of the nature of a city or a governmental organization, county, state, whatever. Who's to say what my speech is, whether it's relevant or not? Maybe I'm leading up to something. Maybe I'm just giving you the big what for. Either way, who's to say whether something's relevant or not? So I hear this idea of something being claimed that it is relevant to the topic. I've heard that so many times at recorded city council meetings. I've been to a couple of meetings, and that comes up. How do you enforce that? How do you enforce what a person says upon their meaning, right? How do you enforce words not being said? How do you enforce words being said? Are you going to cut their mic off? Are you going to not allow them to speak? That itself is the physical act, not the words. The words are not the incitement. It's the physical act of cutting someone's mic off. So people get it in their head that, words, are going to hurt them, and then they stick with that. But that's you getting in your feelings. Really, ultimately, that's your problem. It's not my problem. So if that is the case, I personally would suggest, and it's just, I'm not a doctor, not a lawyer either, but I would suggest maybe seeking some help, because that sounds to me like a personal problem if you get in your feelings. And it doesn't even matter if it's at a city council meeting, anywhere you get into your feelings at.
Seconds.
Yeah, with that, I relinquish. Thank you.
All right, guys. I'm pulling you guys both back up here for a second. I'm gonna go ahead and give you guys 3 minutes, and I may even give you 5 to refute what you guys were saying about the city council meeting. I'm gonna take myself down, so you guys are both up here, and you guys can start.
Well, I don't think that well, I understand what you're saying about feelings, because feelings are subjective. We're talking about an objective situation here, and so that's kind of where I'm coming from.
Okay.
What do you have to say about that?
What would be the objective situation that someone got, quote unquote, got incited?
Depends on the subject. It could be about personal issues like water rights or land management, and people could be saying inflammatory things specifically about that and towards individuals specifically. A lot of the time.
So I'll give you an example, right? What if it was a sewage factor, right? And the city was dealing with like a big nasty smell coming out of the gutters or something, right? And somebody came up and said, "Hey, it smells like," and now all of a sudden people are, "Oh, I go to church. Oh my God, you can't believe he said a cuss word." Right? Now, should that guy be dragged off? And because, old Miss Mary from the church down the road said that, she doesn't like the way, or is it something more? Is it something else that's a consideration?
It's always more. The standard is likely to incite violence or disruption, whereas something that annoys, irritates, or offends somebody merely by their words is not considered incitement or limited. A lot of the times, most of the time, political speech if there's some value to that political speech, is always, almost always, protected underneath the First Amendment. So that's so vulgarity, I guess, is what you're talking about.
Right. So basically, kind of like what's on the screen here, talking
Because I
about
can be like, it smells like shit. Well, what is shit, and who offended it, and why did they offend it? Did I say you smelled like shit, or did I say these people right here smell like shit because of it? Well, no, because I'm not talking about the individual or the group. So there's the distinguish between both of the.
Now, the question is, should we put our hands on somebody because they said a word that we don't like?
Should we? No, that's also illegal.
Right. So when you're limiting someone's ability to speak, right, you're limiting their peace, right? And that's my view of it, right? And so even if they went up there and told a lie, they go up there and literally say lies about the whole council, about the mayor, right? Those words, right? Who are they offending?
Well, you're talking about one scenario.
I mean,
say there's a problem with an individual's house, and you start talking trash about that person individually and talking about their kids, and well, if they didn't do this and they didn't do that. If you don't think that is extremely insightful to a specific person, then you might try it sometime and see how that works out for you.
Here's something for you. I hope it does. I hope it does get to them, to the point where they're incited to clean up their yard, where they're incited
you just
to
said a sewage problem. You didn't say like a blight yard. You said a sewage problem, which is by definition the governmental jurisdiction's obligation, not the individual person. So
yeah. But so when we are speaking freely about the issues, right, we may use language that, well, isn't appreciated by others, but my hope is that it's inciting people to do the right thing moving forward, right? The reason that people get in their feelings is because they don't want to do the right thing. And then they claim that you offended them, therefore they needed to act upon you and be violent towards you. That's
okay, well, let me ask you a question.
Mm-hmm.
So say it's a city problem and there's nothing the individual can do, and they get attacked as if it was their direct responsibility, their problem, their obligation. You should just be able to just talk any way you want to people.
Sure. Yeah, absolutely.
Okay, now then qualify that. Why do you feel you should be able to do that?
Because we are a collective. We live under a
so you should be able to say anything you want about me, my household, my family, and what I'm doing, even though I have nothing to do with the problem. You should be able to bring them into light's eyes in front of the entire world if you want, and I should just sit back and just accept it.
With words, sure.
We're getting off topic here on the scenario, and we've gone over our 5
This is all about the city council. We were definitely on topic.
Well, we were talking about homes, private residences at that point. So
but what do you address at a city council, BZ? Come on, we were on topic. You were the one who failed.
We will readdress this at the closing refute, though. So we will. That.
All right, fair enough.
The next scenario, you guys are going to like this one because it's a traditional forum, and it's going to be the public park. And Dub WUBS, you're going to get to go first again on this one. So let me move you around and.
Oh, I got to go first?
Yep. You get to go first on this one. Go ahead.
So, a public park. I guess it depends on which public park we're talking about, because you got smaller ones that never occupied. You got public parks that are huge, massive, and they have signs dictating what you can and can't do, like, say, the hours you can be there, and no drinking, no alcohol, things like that. Should you be able to go into any public park you want, no matter what's going on, and protest anything that you want? So now we're looking at where the government would come in for restrictions, even in a public forum, a traditional public forum. And it's a matter of time, place, manner. What is time, place, manner? It matters of the time of day, the manner you're doing it, whether you're using bullhorns, signs, or any, sidewalk chalk, any of these different elements to this. And then manner, are you being rude, abusive, abusive, I think that's the word. Yes, you have a right to do a lot of those things, and it has to be limited to a certain degree, only for the simple fact that it's not your park, it's everybody's park. So the traditional forum is a little bit harder to say that you don't have way more free speech, because obviously you do. It's just determinant on how you utilize the time that you have, what you're trying to do, the signs you have. I think that certain signs, simple words written on a sign, is not unconstitutional, nor does it violate time, place, manner, or the other doctrines that we've already established. As long as it's not vulgar. I mean, and so this is actually advocating towards something. No, you shouldn't be able to produce very graphic sexual images around a park that's 90% children. I think that's there's no benefit to society for that. There's no benefit to the individuals seeing that. There's no governmental interest in any of that. And the fact that an angry parent or grandparent or anything of the sort may be
All right, time's up.
excessively high, yeah, it might be a problem. So,
All right. Sorry, I had to mute you there because time was up, buddy. All right, reset. All right, Brick, let me know when you're ready so I can hit this timer.
Ready whenever you are.
Go ahead.
All right, traditional public forum, referencing parks. And this really could, it could go out towards, any public venue really, but particularly parks. Yes, there are restrictions. There are restrictions. Those are publicly purchased lands. They are purchased by the government's entity, and they are regulated by the people, right? They are regulated. It's not a matter of whether they're fully public. I do believe that there's a little bit of a confusion when it comes to our government and public lands, right? People want to believe that public means completely free. Public doesn't mean completely free to do whatever and say whatever you want. I do recognize that. However, when it comes to free speech, particularly, not free expression, not protesting, you don't have rights to expression. There are no rights to expression explicitly listed in the Constitution or in the Declaration. That is not true. Also, when it comes to your quote unquote right to protest, it doesn't exist. There is no right to protest. You have a right to speech and a right to assemble. Now, a lot of government agencies would have you believing that the two exist together on this platform of protesting. It's not there. You have the right to say whatever you want to say. So let's make that clear. So when you go to the public park, and this is just a suggestion, I would find a place where there aren't what seems to be the crazy people hanging out, and go hang out over there. Because guess what? We're all crazy. Those people who you believe are crazy, they might be crazy, but according to them, you're crazy too. So figure that one out, right? Again, going back to the point of the original that I placed forward, I have this deep compassion for the crazy guy in the corner, right? Now he's hanging out in the corner, and you want the corner. So you decide, because you want the corner, you're going to find a reason why you don't like what he's saying. He's over there talking to himself. Maybe he's talking to God, right? Now he's not drinking. He's not pissing in the bushes, right? He's not throwing up sexual pictures and that sort of thing. Rather, what he's doing is he's talking to himself.
10 seconds.
And so I have that deep compassion, and yeah, time, place, manner. Nah, not for speech.
Time. All right, guys. Now you guys go ahead and get to refute that. And this time we're going to go ahead and last time, I think Dub started off on the refute, so we'll let you start this time, Brick.
Sure. So yeah, you had mentioned things like protesting, time, place, manner, bullhorn signs, manner of being abusive, the manner of being abusive, and then how to utilize your speech and that sort of thing. But you did mention graphic sexuality, which kind of has me in this place, right, where I'm like, I really don't want the kids to see it. I don't. But the problem is that sexuality, right, that whole premise of that being speech is a falsehood.
Is that it? No, I think that any sign is representation of speech. There's it's called expressive, and it's also symbolic. So there's that. And time would be, you can't go into a park at 2 a.m. Manner, you can't go with the bullhorn. Place, obviously, a public park. You can't just walk around yelling what you want anytime you want, at any hours of the day, with any device you want, with any medium that you want, and think that it's legal.
So this is true. This is true. It's not legal, but is it lawful?
No, it's not lawful.
Really? Because there is a difference between legal and lawful. Would you agree with that?
Yeah. But tell me how it's not lawful.
How is it
tell
lawful
me
but
how
not legal?
Infringing on other people's rights
to peace and privacy and that sort
of thing. One and the other.
Yeah. So there's this little thing called compassion, right? And so we might have compassion for the crazy guy in the corner. We might. I have it. He has problems. Okay. So we give him a little bit more space. We give him a little bit more time to talk. Right. And if he's got a little bit of graphic, then okay. So we just don't bring our children around that, and we find a space for him, right? Or we give him the space. Ultimately, there's no reason or right that we have as the government to put our hands on him because he just wants to express himself, and by the way, it's actually press, not speech. So we have 5 rights, the 5 elements, right?
Well, I'm fully aware.
Graphic images is press. It's not speech. And protesting
it's definitely symbolic
isn't real.
Speech. It's definitely symbolic speech.
It's called pressing, right? You press the pen. You press the button. You press the press. That press, right? And
yeah,
I know.
I mean, we've been through that. We've not here, but we've talked about it. That's not what freedom of the press means, and you know that.
No, I do know that that's what it means. That's exactly what it means. Press. The word press.
No, it's not.
Yeah.
The freedom of the press. The freedom of the press stems from back in the 1700s, where you had to have a license from the king in order to print something.
Mm-hmm. Go on.
And the license only comes if the king likes it.
Right.
He approves of it.
We, the people,
So
own this
we're
country,
not talking about, the press comes from the printing press, which has nothing to do with something you hand draw.
Do we use the printing press today?
Well, the actual, where it came from, like the actual term where it came from.
Yeah. Do we use?
No, I mean, some people
we
do, but
we-
not as a general, not as a general
we still-
medium. No,
We still have newspapers, magazines, books. We still use the
but it's
printing
not the press.
No, those are presses. That's exactly what those are. Those are presses. Yes.
No, they're not.
No, they are. That is exactly what they are. Those are presses. Brother, man, those are presses. The Nudie magazine, guess what? That's printed on a printing press. Yes. Yeah. Legit. It's published in everything. Playboy.
It's a printer, not a printer
all of
press.
That.
We're talking about
those are presses.
the original constitutional understanding of what the press is, and where you had to literally press it.
Just because it's not words doesn't mean it's not a press.
You don't. So I can take a piece of cardboard right now and I can draw whatever I want on it, and I didn't press it on there. I drew
That's
it.
a press. Yeah, that's a press. You have pressed the pen. Yeah, go ahead. I know BZ's coming up.
I understand. I got you. I mean, I understand where you're coming from.
I was just saying if you guys were finished, because we just went over 5 minutes on that. So the next one, we're going to do another limited forum. This one's going to be the public library. And Brick, you're going to get to start first this time. So let me reset my clock and let me move. Sorry about this. There we go. Right there. And your time begins now.
All right. So the public library is an interesting one because the public library, again, going back to the point that it is a public venue that's paid for by the taxpayers. Not every public library is going to have every single thing that all the other public libraries have, right? And so because of that, you're going to go in and you're going to find that certain sections are about certain things. It doesn't mean that we should put all the pornographic material into the kiddie section. Please don't. Please don't do that. We pay our public employees to keep everything pretty organized and secure, right? We pay for the locked doors. We pay for the deep filing cabinets. We pay for those thumb drives that they use, right? And so everything that we pay for, they tend to misappropriate. So what happens a lot of times is you go into the library and they do their best, but sometimes you'll find books that aren't where they're supposed to be, right? If we pay them to do a job and they haven't done their job correctly and they're allowing story time hour in inappropriate manners, then we fire them and we get employees who allow it, right? And everything's like a sign up base, right? So you sign up, right? And then when you place these people in these categories to do like story time or whatever, you put them into the correct place. You don't put the gross stuff in with the not gross stuff. You put the documentaries with the documentaries. And so we can have a public library like the Library of Alexander, right? Or Alexandria, excuse me. You organize everything and then you say, okay, this section is for this section is for that. And then if people are doing, literally physically doing something inappropriate, then that's where we step in physically, because they're physically doing something inappropriate. With that, I'll yield back.
All right. Let me pull everybody up. We got Dub WUBS. Let me go ahead and start. All right. And your time begins now.
All right. Well, I presume when you said library, you meant limited public forum. And what the reason for that being is that the entire library is for something very specific, reading books or doing what it was intended to do, like having communical operations like, I don't know, art time or story time and things like that. And so, no, you shouldn't be able to go into an art classroom in the library that was meant and intended for that purpose to go in there and hold up signs that are completely irrelevant to the subject, and for you to disrupt the order of process of that library based on you thinking that you have some right to do any amount of speech anywhere you want in any government building, strictly because speech should be absolute. Now, I agree. You should definitely, I don't think you should keep 18 and up stuff away from people in general, but definitely from the kids. I think the main process, the whole point of the library is to go there and to educate yourself, learn knowledge, and have a place to be able to read, have some quiet, jump on the computers in today's day and age, fill out applications, whatever you have to do. And I don't think that, and neither does the Supreme Court, think that you should be able to go in there with a bunch of signs and 50 people yelling "Free Palestine" or "Free whatever." I think that's an absurd, misconstrued reality of what the public library's purpose was. There's a very strict, pointed purpose of the library, which is where the money came from the public to establish that library. And so now we're going in there, we're making a mockery of it. We're disrespecting not only that, but all the people in it. And the actual intended purpose of the library is now being obfuscated because a couple people felt that was the place they could just go in and voice their opinion no matter what anybody said. I think that's a very appropriate thing for the limited public forum doctrine to address, is that that was not intended for that. That's not what the money that was allocated for that was supposed to go to. And what you're doing is everything that it was intended for, now you're creating a disruption you're creating the disruption that is hindering the operation of the facility.
Time. All right, let me pull you guys both back up here. Reset that. Okay. You guys have now, take myself down. You got 3 minutes to 5 minutes to go ahead and refute. I'll let you guys know when we hit the 5-minute mark if we go that long. And we're going to start with Brick this time.
Yeah, sure. So you mentioned holding up signs. I kind of pointed out to you that no, you don't have a right to protest in this country. You don't have that right. I know people believe it. You don't have a right to protest. You have a right to assemble, and you have a right to speech, free speech. You have to have a right to speak freely. When you couple the two together and call it protest, ultimately what you're doing is a disservice to understanding our rights in this country, because they're God-given, right? You don't have a right to throw bricks through windows. You don't have a right to scream into somebody's ear with a bullhorn. No, you don't have that right, because that can physically do damage. And when it comes to what you're referring to as limited public forum, and you're talking about the library is paid for by the taxpayers. However, the government is a corporation. What that means is that now it has employees. And because those employees are not keeping the policies, the rules, the procedures, the protocols, what they have done is made the mockery, right? They have not found a way to keep these things separated. We've paid them to do it. They said they could do it, but they can't do it, right? So my question to you is, you say limit the free speech then. Why is that the solution?
I think one thing that you're inherently misunderstanding is that a sign is speech, and a sign does not equate to protest or assembly. Can we agree on that?
No, a sign is not either. It's press.
It's definitely speech. I don't know where you learn whatever thing you're learning about.
It's the English language.
Anything written is speech. Anything drawn is still speech. It's symbolic references.
Well, let me ask you,
whether you agree on it or not is irrelevant.
Where does speech come from?
Speech can be written, verbal, or
No, I'm sorry.
or a gesture. This is called free speech. Me saying
Where does speaking?
that
Where
is
does
speech right there. You see that? That is speech.
I don't care what the courts have ruled.
That's symbolic.
I don't care what the courts are stupid. We already agree on that, right? Courts are wrong many times.
Many times, yeah, but
Right.
I don't think that.
So if I told you in
So
basic
what is
English,
flipping someone off? What is that called?
that's expression.
It's a symbolic form of speech.
It's actually expression. It's actually expression.
Which is also speech.
No.
Speech and expression are literally hand in hand if you look at case law.
So you're saying it's body language, right?
Expression, it doesn't matter.
Body language.
Written,
Language, right?
verbal, or gestures are our speech.
But if we speak, right, where does that
assembly come from? Is what you're talking about when you're talking about
why
protest.
Avoid the question?
Assembly.
Why avoid the question?
Means a congregation of more than one person.
I asked a very simple question, dude. It's speak. Where do you speak? How do you speak? You personally.
Many ways.
Sometimes speak many ways.
Sometimes through gestures. So are you going to tell me that deaf people who use sign language don't speak?
No, they do. We accept that.
I think
we give them a little bit.
Most
more time.
people
That's
accept that gestures and symbology is speech, though. So,
but if you can, right? If you can do it, right? Yet you refuse to do it because, well, you don't feel like doing it. Are you really being honest? You're not in good faith.
Well,
right?
I disagree.
So if I do all this extra stuff with my hands, but I can speak the words out of my mouth, right? Then I'm not in good faith. Right, because I can say.
Do you think that writing is considered speech?
No, that's press. You press the pen. It's literally the word press the pen.
Do you think that all written anything is all press?
Yes.
I think there's a fundamental disagreement in that, and so maybe that's something for another argument. Because Well, you're not going to. There's a fundamental disagreement on that fact, and so there's not really. I mean, I guess go ahead and try to.
Here's a concession, okay? They're all in conjunction with each other. They are individual, right? Just like we, the people, are all individuals. All of our rights are individually in conjunction with each other, but we can't call them what they're not.
You can't call writing something on paper the press.
Really? Because I just pressed the pen and wrote out a whole bunch of stuff. I literally just did it. Pressed.
I could type it, but so anything I type on here is all press.
I didn't speak the words to the paper. That wasn't speech.
So I'm going from the constitutional originalists, where the freedom of the press, the term came from, not to this newfound anything. So I guess. I don't know what you're talking about.
I don't know what that means.
Anytime you say freedom of the press, nobody was thinking 200 years in the future and thinking about phones and markers and fucking.
Okay, but they could write with a pen, right?
Can you give me an example of someone who went out back in, I don't know, say we'll just throw a number out there, 1830s, that went out with a piece of parchment and just wrote on it, and they were like, "I'm the press," or do you think there was?
There were.
Or do you think they were specifically? Yeah. Do you think that the Constitution, the freedom of the press, was specifically talking about the freedom of the press being you needing a permit to print something? Because I'm pretty sure that was the context that it was written in.
It really actually had to do with publishing, but because the funny thing about it is, when we're talking about our rights, right? Language changes. Language changes. Look,
I don't care about language changes, but the press and pressing and the definition of press still has the same meaning that it did. The press, the printing press. You could press whatever you wanted on it. You couldn't what? What did you say?
It has the same meaning, but it didn't mean just the printing press.
Yeah, you're right. It meant having a permit from the king in order to give it to people. You're right. Publish it, I guess.
To publish it, right. It was about publishing, right? Now, if I choose that I want to put my work out there because I've literally written it down or put it into a file on a computer, right? What does the government have to do with that? Right? So when it comes to, let's go back to the library, okay? I've written out some work that I've literally written it out, right? That is on a thumb drive. And I go dump it into the book depository, right? The little box out front, right? Now, they have a choice whether they want to put that on the shelf, look at it, of course, and put it on the shelf or not, right? They don't have to, right? It's their choice. If it's something that's appropriate in this section or that section, why don't they do it? Why? I'll tell you why. It's because they don't want certain people to say certain things about certain people. It's their choice.
You guys good? I mean, we're at 8.5 minutes on this. I was kind of
Love it.
Oh, I got his email. We can speak later. I don't care. It's all good.
I was just letting it go, man. You guys were making some valid
I mean,
points there.
I still have a fundamental disagreement, but all right.
You know, agree to disagree, right? Ain't that how we do it? All right. So now we're going to move on to another traditional forum. And it's going to go back and forth with you all speaking. I think this is going to be a good point to bring in this one with signage, press, and speech, as we were so saying. I've got the steps of City Hall, and this time we're going to let Dub WUBS go first, but I'm going to reset this timer first, and let me pull him up there. And Dub WUBS, your 3 minutes starts now.
Steps of City Hall. Is that what you said?
Yes, sir. Traditional.
I think that's one of the places that you have the most protections for free speech, for free assembly, and all the other liberties granted to you by the Constitution. I think that time, place, and manner has a very limited role in this forum that we're talking about, and that as long as we're not stopping people from transgressing through the city hall or making their way, we cannot impede the flow of movement for any reason. That would be a crime in general, not speech. I think there's really not much to say about this topic other than graphic imagery and any symbolic imagery that would create the immediate incite of violence or disruption should be completely allowed. I don't think that you should be able to go on the steps of City Hall and call for violence. I don't think that you should promote hurting people or suggesting it whatsoever. I mean, God bless the homeless vets. I think that Jeff Gray has it pretty clear. He can just go on the steps of City Hall with a sign, not saying anything other than God bless the homeless vets, regardless of what's on his sign or not. And that's completely legitimate. There's honestly no reason why you can't. Even panhandling laws, they're unconstitutional on their face because it's an appeal to charitable funds. So it's a very tough one. I don't think that absolute free speech should be allowed there, because that means that any hour, time, place, manner does not restrict anyone, which means you can just do whatever you want on the steps. As far as speech, the amplification of speech and the speech provided, I don't think that you should be up there, calling for direct threats. I think that's the main thing on the steps of City Hall is direct threats and things of the sort.
And we got 15 seconds left. Okay. All right. So we're going to bring you back up. Brick, let me stop this, and whenever you're ready, sir.
Yep. So the city hall steps. Yeah, I do believe you're actually quite right that there are the quote unquote most protections as far as the government realizing that we have our speech freely and that sort of thing. The idea of stopping movement, yeah, that's not a good idea. You know, if people are moving about and that sort of thing, putting your hands on people just because they're moving from here to there is just, I mean, why would you, like, because you saw somebody pass by, all of a sudden there's a need to stop somebody from moving. You know, you brought up graphic imagery. This one, you're getting me. You're getting me right now. No. The problem with that is that typically what happens is in small towns, right? People don't do that. If it's going to happen, it's going to happen in probably the bigger cities. It's rare to happen in the smaller cities. Notice really should be given that, hey, by the way, yeah, you go down this way, there's going to be some weird stuff, right? You go down that way, it's going to be some weird stuff. And that's your responsibility as a citizen. And it's also the responsibility of you asking the government to make notice available. Because there are places in this country where there's some pretty graphic stuff going on. And you walk through there and you try to say, hey, you can't be doing that. And that's literally the place where they do that. That graphic stuff, that's the place where those people go to. It's like their venue. And you're going to go in there and tell them you can't do that. Well, you might be the one who gets hands put on. So just realize that you're the one who's inciting the violence. You're the one who's walked up into those places where that venue is available for those people. And they do it in public. Yeah, right there on the city hall steps, right? The Million Titty March or whatever they call it. You know, it's not a matter of promoting hurting people, okay? When you try to hurt people, and I do mean physically, not mentally or all that extra stuff, right? It's not a good idea. I don't encourage that. I encourage, and I actually, this brings me to a point of, these aren't things that I would suggest doing, right? It's not good to be nasty towards people. It's not good to lie. It's not good to threaten. But just because somebody did that, somebody lied, threatened, whatever, held up a graphic sign, according to you, okay, you know, that doesn't mean it's unconstitutional. That just means that you got offended by it, and you are the problem. I yield back.
All right. So now you guys get to go for 3 minutes or longer, depending on what transpires. But you guys get to go refute on Step City Hall traditional. And this time we will have Dub WUBS start. Go ahead.
So I guess our definition of free speech is a little bit different. So it's a little bit hard to ask, especially when you think that written or drawn signs or even printed signs are separate from speech. Is that right?
I do.
So at what point does printed or written signs become, well, not only immoral because of the time, place, and manner restrictions? I mean, obviously, if you can't just go up there when there's like a field trip to the city hall, as to where you actually draw these lines and how you actually define them. Because I'm from a position where written speech is speech. It's not press. And I think that even though, like, because I don't even think that making a random banner or advertisement is it press? I think it's speech. I think the press is very specific.
So let me go from your point of view, just because I can do that. Let's just, for the sake of argument, assume that the sign is speech, right? What is offensive to me may not be offensive to you, right? And so regardless of whether it's speech or not, it's just like saying the cuss words, right? That's graphic to some people. So when you look at a sign or a picture that has what's got graphic on it, right? And it could be a picture of a naked lady, right? And literally going at the business, right? At what point does that become offensive? It's because you've got offended, not me. Like let's say I'm carrying the sign, right? And you say, hey, that's offensive. It's offensive because my children can see it, but it's offensive. So now what do you do with your children? Do you continue to walk down the road by me where the offensive stuff is? Or do you go home at that point? When you see the nastiness on City Hall, right? And you continually hang out at City Hall. This is kind of my position on that, is you cannot continually say that you are in fear of someone or something, yet you continually move towards them. That just doesn't work in my book. It's fight or flight.
No, I agree. I think that subjectivity is a prime factor in the debate we're having. And I've never said that your personal feelings have anything, or not yours specifically, but someone's specific feelings has any boundary on what I can or can't do. The term graphic would imply graphic as in having the veins, having this, having these, graphic as in, a little 2D stick figure is not graphic. Okay.
Right.
Graphic is like if they would impose your face or my face and print it, that would be graphic. And then now we're talking about illicit graphic, which would be already illegal parts. You can't go and show this, that, and the other people as far as your privates and stuff. So I think that I do agree. Don't walk towards the problem. It's like everybody in this community, like, well, if you didn't want to be on camera, why'd you call my attention and then walk towards it?
That's exactly
so
right.
We can't agree on that much, but
yep. Yeah. And it becomes very difficult because it's your city hall. You're part of the village, right? And so you're looking at the situation going, well, what the hell? Every single day I come out here, there's this guy out here and he's holding this sign and I feel like it's graphic. Well, I definitely ain't going to take my kids downtown. I can't even take my kids downtown. It's like going on for weeks now and they're not doing anything about it because they can't physically. So what do I do about it? I move to a town I like. And it sucks. It sucks. It sucks. But here's the thing. A lot of those people who live in those towns want to be there. They want to. And they moved there. People go to where they want to go, especially in this country, because we have the right to travel freely in this country. We have the ability to, for the most part. And as someone who's been on the streets and had nothing, when I look at the whole situation and people say, well, I don't want to lose everything. Well, it's really not much to lose. And that's just my opinion. It's just my opinion.
Yeah. Well, I mean, you might not have had much to lose though. So there's that.
No, I've had a lot to lose.
I understand what you're saying. I mean, and that's why I don't tell people go back to your country, go back to your state, go back, because you know what? I was born and raised in this motherfucker. I ain't going back nowhere. You might want to go back where you were from, kind of mentality. So there's that. And so this is the reason why we got to have some balance somewhere. There has to be some balance somewhere. Otherwise there'd be extreme chaos for no reason.
Yeah. So the way I take it is that men should have decorum, etiquette, should, right? That's why I say from the beginning, I believe that men should have the ability to say whatever they want to say based upon the fact that they need to find peace. It doesn't mean that I think they should, or I believe that they should do it, right? That they should have the ability to. that means that the government can't force them. And I also believe that when it comes to the children, we do give them special rights. We do need to protect them as much as we possibly can and that sort of thing. But what that means is that they don't always get to go downtown. They don't always get to go down because, to be quite frank with you, there are some crazy people out there.
So what you're saying is that you're a free speech absolutist and that it's other people's prerogative, obligation to limit themselves.
That's right. That's right. Absolutely.
But how is, I mean,
you can't enforce it. That's
hey
basically
man,
what I'm saying.
if you want to rock with that statement, go for it.
Yeah. And it really has always been my position that I believe that
So what do you do when a bunch of people go down there and
I leave.
Force your ass out?
I leave.
But like, how was there a balance of like actual civility in this? So what you're saying is whoever has more people and who's more scary gets more precedent over what words can be said. That's not natural. Free speech. You're actually acting law. Like the government, but in a pseudo fucking weird way.
That's natural law, because ultimately there are.
Oh, it's not. I mean, well, all right. Go ahead. Sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off.
Yeah, you're fine. You're fine. That is naturally what happens with populations. People migrate away from oppression, right? That's why we saw what happened in the 1940s, the early 1940s. Part of the reason why that happened was because of the migration, right? There was a massive migration to a free area, Germany, by a certain people from other countries who were being oppressed in other areas. And then they moved to what they believed was a free area. And then a lot of propaganda started being put out. And so it's just this deep compassion I have for the crazy guy, man.
I don't know. So what you're saying is that bullying people is acceptable is all I fucking heard, actually. The bigger guy with the louder voice. Doesn't matter what you say, as long as you can force somebody somewhere else to a point that you like or dislike and make them understand it, you're okay with that. And I just find a very moral, societal, vehemently,
because we don't know what that guy
position that's completely wrong with that. That's my opinion on that.
You ever heard the phrase "hurt people hurt people"?
Yeah, I don't know how that's relevant to forcing people out of their country or out of their town because you have a better view of something.
So I don't have the ability to look at it from the 35,000 foot view, but I can try to look at it from the 30,000 foot view. Okay. And from that 30,000 foot view, I see a lot of people getting hurt because people get their feelings hurt. And so I'm not suggesting that people go out there and cuss people out. Hell, I do it sometimes, but it's only because I see something wrong happening, right? It's like, hey, what the hell are you doing? You blah, 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 blah. Because I've seen it, right? Now, if that person who's hurting the other person comes and attacks me because I'm cussing them out, well, then they might get a mouthful. With the fist, right? So I might defend myself, most likely, right? I'm not going to run away from what I've seen that is bad. I'm going to probably stand up, right? That's just me, right?
Well, I get it. You're coming from a moral standpoint. I understand that. I mean, I've already well beyond understanding that what you're able to do versus what you should do are two different things.
Right.
I understand that, but I don't think that I don't. But so now we're basing everything off of what you find moral, which is what, again, subjective. So now we got to figure out
no, it's not necessarily me. It's not necessarily me, because what I'm doing is I'm allowing the guy who needs to talk to talk. That's it. I'm allowing him to say whatever he wants at this point. And it could be a threat towards me. And if that is the case, and he doesn't actually act on it, then what would I be if I attacked him? I would be the aggressor.
Yeah. I mean, that
I've
makes
had
sense.
many-
But at the same time, your position is free speech absolutism, is it not?
Yes. Yes. 1A
So
absolute.
what are you going to do about the people who don't have the ability or the wherewithal or the common sense or the age to do anything about that? And then what we call that? We would call that propaganda. We would call that
Encouragement.
manipulation.
Encouragement.
We would
I
call
call it
that fucking bullying.
No, encouragement. Not through threat of force. Not through threat of force.
So you're going to encourage people to do what you want.
Which is the right thing. Do the right thing.
Who said that you're the person? When did you become the arbiter of the right thing, though? That's my question.
I'm not. And that's the point too, right? So I can tell a person what I believe is right, right? But that doesn't make me the arbiter, right? So what that means is that they have to choose what is right and what is wrong. Now, there are some basic realities, right? What goes up must come down. You can't breathe underwater, right? Things like that are definitely basic realities. But when it comes to what people call morality, now we get into territory of ideology, right?
Subjectivity. Yeah, of course.
Right? But
anything
when
that's subjective, I personally, if anything, if we're talking about laws, I think that anything that's subjective should be thrown right out the fucking door. Let's talk about objectivity, because that's how people live, how people understand. That's how you define bad versus good, by objectivity. Subjectivity could change at the whim of a fucking wind blowing.
That's right. That's right. So what do you do when you have a family, right? And you're trying to bring them up in a free society?
Where's your limits on free?
No. I'm saying, what do you do?
No, I'm asking you. I mean, I can't answer that until you qualify the question. What's your limits on free society?
Physical realm, natural. What's natural? What do you do when it's everything goes?
What do you do when people have a different opinion on what's moral than you?
This is what I would suggest. I like what the founders proposed, which is that everybody gets to say whatever they want, right? They get to go wherever they want in public, and they get to write about it, press about it, right? They get to, if they want to go out and hold up a sign, like, you can't just take their sign from them, then you are literally attacking them, right? That's not, protected, taking somebody's sign, right? Then you are the physical.
Yeah, that'd be a physical act, of course.
Right. You get to believe whatever you want. Religion, you get to believe whatever you want, right? And then you get to also, and this is the caveat too, this is the one that I love that the founders put in. You get to ask the government anything that you say is a grievance. That's the petition part. Petitioning your government for a redress. That's a change of your grievances. What you say is needed to be changed. So that question that you get to ask the government, you get to pose it any way you want. And it's actually
redress of grievances does not say anything about change. It's not what the word means.
That's what the word redress means. That's literally
redress
what the
means.
word.
I get to speak about it. Redress it. Let's look it up. All right. We're going to have, you might be right. Let's look it up.
Yep.
Maybe. All right. The setting right of what is wrong. 1. 2. Relief from wrong or injury. 3. Compensation or satisfaction for a wrong or injury. 3. No, those are nouns. Verb. To set right, remedy or repair wrongs, injuries, etc. 2. To correct or reform, abuse, evils, etc. 3. To remedy or reveal suffering, want, etc. 4. To adjust evenly against as a balance.
So ask it what it means in the military sense. So do you know what all those definitions mean?
Pull it up.
It means
No.
change. So in the military sense, and let's consider the fact that the founders were military men, right? Right. Let's consider that they were military men. They knew what they were saying. They knew what they were writing. Okay. And in the government, in the military, when we're talking about redressing, and your commander or your platoon sergeant or somebody comes to you and says, "Hey, redress." What that means
a grievance. And we're not talking about the military. And pull up the military.
It's the same thing.
Pull up the military definition, because otherwise we don't know what we're talking about.
Yeah, I mean it means change. So like literally, like to redress yourself. Like that's just plain simple concept, right? That's the founders did not write this so that only
just because you
lawyers
fucking
could
wrote it
read
doesn't mean it's going to happen. Just because you said I'm going to redress does not mean it's going to.
The First Amendment, they
make change though,
bro. The First Amendment was written in plain English. They did not write it so that only lawyers and judges and anybody like that could read it. They wrote it so that we could read.
There's nothing in there that was not plain English.
That is plain English. Redress. To redress. That means to change
your
stuff,
grievances.
change it out.
So you have to understand that words they form in a sentence. Redress of grievance.
So the phrase is actually, you have the right to petition your government to petition your government for the redress of.
I don't know why we didn't start with this shit. Damn it, BZ.
Well, this may be another topic to go over.
I'm just saying. I mean,
maybe BZ fell asleep too. BZ,
I figured we'd say it from the start. Tell you what, I got this real quick for you, just so everybody understands. This is what it says. Give me 1 second. Just so we're all on the same page. Congress shall make no law respecting an establishment of religion or prohibiting the free exercise therefore of, or abridging the freedom of speech or of the press or the right of the people to peaceably to assemble and to petition the government for a redress of grievances. Petition the redress of grievances. Yes.
Right. So that's why it's RAPS, RAPPS, right? So the petitioning of your grievances, right? Because you want to change. You say, hey, yo, government, I want this change, man. Right? Yeah, I don't know what happened to BZ.
He took a nap.
I'm about to.
He pulled up. He's like, I'm here, son.
Okay. I was about to call him. Maybe he took Brownie out for a walk.
Oh, sorry. Are you guys ready to move on to the next one? I was having some technical difficulties.
We did 5, I thought. We did 5, and that was the thing.
Oh, it was a lot longer than 5.
No, I'm saying how many scenarios you said.
Yeah, we did 5.
The next scenario is going to be the post office. That's number 5. And Brick, you get to go first.
Hey, man. Hold up. Y'all do your thing for a second. I got to go use the restroom.
Hey, look, I'm good with a break because I'll take care of this computer thing real quick. So take like 2 minutes. Take 2 minutes.
I got you. I got you both. All right. So when we're talking about the post office, yet again, we're talking about.
Bro, let me use the bathroom. Hold on.
Oh, he wants to use the bathroom. Intermission. Apologies, folks. While they're gone, I am not going to serenade you with any type of songs or music. That is not going to happen. But I will do a little bit of a shout out and a promo for Mr. BZ. You guys know very well that the trolls have done nasty things and said nasty things about him. In my opinion, he's a decent fellow American. He does have products. He does have a store, Tap Security, online. He does self-defense products. He's very much a constitutionalist, in my opinion, as well. He is definitely one of our American brothers, and he wants pretty much the same thing that Dub WUBS and I do, and I'm sure that you guys do as well. He loves this country, and he wants us to be free. That's my opinion of it, right? He also wants us to speak freely, according to what's allowed. Whether he decides absolute or not, that's on him to decide. We live under a social contract and that sort of thing. But his products, they're very good products. They're available on his website. And I'm sure that he would appreciate anything you possibly can do to assist in that appreciation for him and what he is doing here to increase our freedom. So there's my plug. There's my shout out for BZ and his products. And thank you, BZ. Don't know if you can hear that.
He was busy doing some shit.
Yeah, he's always busy. That's the funny thing, is BZ is always busy.
Good, you better be busy.
But with that said, if you're ready, I can go ahead and give my view of the post office. I don't know if he would want that or not. Here he comes.
Here he is.
Hang on, I had myself muted. Okay, hang on.
All right.
You guys didn't see what I was doing was I had a home delivery.
Oh, like
look
2
at
hours
that.
too late. Dang it.
I know it, right?
This is why I went vertical mode tonight. So he took my PC so he can work on it.
We don't stop, brother.
We don't stop. Never. We don't stop.
That's right.
So let me do this.
Right.
Let me get back in the timer real quick. Because that's what I was doing. I was listening, but I was taking, and that's how long you guys were refuting on that last one. So I was just letting y'all go. It was.
Trust me, we can go longer, but probably not live next time.
The guy that was helping me with the computer was actually literally listening, like, "What the hell?" Like, yeah, they're going at it, all right. So the next scenario we got is the post office. Brick's gonna go first. And let me move you up there. 3 minutes and go, Brick.
All right. So the post office, of course, I'm going to look at it pretty much in the same way that I've looked at all of these different government operations. They're a business. They are owned by we, the people, and we attempt to put in security protocols. There are procedures that they are supposed to follow. There's limiting because of reality, because we put up a nice big fat lock, which means that they're not going to be able, unless they cut it, which is a physical act, they're not going to be able to break on in and go on in and quote unquote assemble. And during the daytime, if you got somebody in there who's cussing and causing a ruckus and that sort of thing, well, guess what? You live in a garbage town. Like, get out of there, right? So that's your government, your people. You didn't talk to these people before they went in, cussing the postmaster out. That sort of thing happens, in my opinion, because of the failure of the people to keep their governments in line, right? You paid those people. Now they are your employees. And because they are your employees, they are your responsibility. And so if they're not doing their job and you believe they're not doing their job, guess what that means? You have to fire them and either find a new employee or do it yourself, right? That's kind of going to be my basic bottom line, is that there's a lot of people who will try to pay somebody to do a job and then the job doesn't get done. And then they complain, and it's like, well, you paid this other guy to do it, and it's because either you couldn't do it or you wouldn't do it. Either way, you're a dud. You, the person, are the dud, not your employee. You're the dud, right? Because you didn't ensure that these things went smoothly. The guy who's yelling ain't doing it right. The guy who's in the post office ain't doing it right. And why? because you didn't ensure of the finer things. You weren't going to the city hall meetings. You weren't going to where you needed to go. And it's the post office, right? The post. You couldn't even get the post under control. The place where your mail gets delivered. Like, no, you have to stay active. You cannot sit at the house all day. You have to get up, get off your behind, and get out there and talk to the people, especially those people on the street. Those people on the street are probably your biggest priority at the moment, right? They don't have much, and they do need your assistance. And they probably love this country. That's probably why they're on the street. I yield back.
All right. And let's see. Dub WUBS, gonna put you up there. Oops. Hang on. Are you Dub, you good?
Let's go.
All right, buddy. Go ahead. 3 minutes.
So the reason why the post office, the United States Post Office Service, is a limited public forum is because that it was a collection of people's monies gathered together for a specific purpose. Now, if we look at the entrances, lobbies, foyers, etc., of course, we can do general speech. I guess we can do press, the protesting, the redresses of grievances. Well, you can do a redresses of grievances there to a point, as long as it's within the manner that you've been given. Time, place, and management. Once again, the time, they have to be open. The place, obviously, the post offices. The manner. Are you going in there being nice, calm? Are you going in there with bullhorns? Can you go in there with a bunch of signs? Can you stop the flow of business, the legitimate business of what the post office was established for? And then sure, you can film in there, of course, for news purposes. We know that one, Poster 7. All the trolls don't know how to they don't know how to read plain English. They don't know what punctuation means, like, at all, apparently. I think that the reason why it's more than what I've already addressed, why it's a limited public forum, is because of the ability to for its personal security purposes, which is why you can record in there, and you will be in trouble if you record someone's private information that was supposed to be private, and then you publish it, like credit card information, things like that, addresses, names, date of birth, whatever you may find there. So I think as a reason why the Post Service is a limited public forum is because there's information in there that is not adherently public information, and as a general rule, the post office was not established for
15 seconds.
It was not established for a common First Amendment purpose. It was there for a very specific reason, and that was to mail postage.
Yeah, time. All right. So, you guys, let me pull you both back up. And I'm going to take myself down. And you guys go ahead and refute and start. And we're going to go with Brick first on this one.
Yeah, no, and I definitely want to ask something about that. Really, the kind of the last thing you mentioned, right? So you mentioned that the post office was not established for the First Amendment. Is that accurate?
What I meant was it was not established for First Amendment. That's not what I meant. So you might be right. What I meant was it's not for the point of publishing, for recording, publishing without restrictions, anything that you can find or make public the rest of the
Yeah.
information in the lobbies, foyers, corridors, and entrances.
And that's why I wanted you to clarify, because I knew that wasn't exactly what you meant. So take a little bit of time for that, and I appreciate that. That makes sense. As to the way you feel about the whole First Amendment thing, it's not that you're saying it's not there for the First Amendment.
Yeah,
Obviously,
that's literally all it's for, is fucking sending information. Words. Remember, but I thought you said it wasn't for. We're talking about the press now, right? Because every letter is the press now. See what I'm saying?
Right.
I think you're gonna get yourself tied in knots there too, though.
Well, no, because bro, it's more than letters. What do you send in the post office? Books, movies, all sorts of stuff, bro. All sorts of stuff you can send. That literally
books are words. Movies are words and symbology. So go ahead.
Where is a stamp made?
It's by a
It's on a press. Yeah.
A stamp is pressed.
Yep. And so aren't the envelopes, right? Those are actually, they're called mills, where the paper is created, and then later on they're sent off to the press, right?
So what do you do about the age of voice text?
So that's a pretty cool thing, actually. I mean, I love that that's available, right? So
it's my voice. I didn't press anything to nothing. So I mean, where does that fall in?
So your rights, all of the 5 elements included, are in conjunction with each other. Actually, the founders were very smart.
Yes, we knew that, but you were the one who tried to separate them. So
no, they are individual rights that are in conjunction, right? That's what that means, that they are separated, but they're attached at the hip.
They're separated by a comma. You're right.
Yeah. Well, by a comma, but that's a comma, right? That's part of the creation of.
As long as we understand that, okay.
Right. So when we're talking about assembly, right, and we're talking about speech, right? Let's take those two for instance, right? Did you have something, BZ?
Yes, I did. I wanted just to kind of give you a fact finding, since we're talking about the post office. See if you guys could elaborate. You mentioned the stamp. You mentioned the printing press. Okay. Now, do you guys know who created the printing press?
Was it Franklin?
I don't know. It was in 1650 something, wasn't it?
Okay.
It was Benjamin Franklin who invented the printing press. Okay. Or I'm sorry, he had a press company. Okay. He did a lot of printing press under an alias name. That's right.
Yeah, it was the first one accepted by the US government.
Yes. Now, guess who also invented the postal service?
Was it Franklin?
It was Franklin. So there you guys have fun with the printing press and speech. There you go. Fun fact. Cool. Go ahead. Keep going, guys.
I still back all the time for that.
I disagree. 1436. German goldsmith Johannes Gutenberg is credited with inventing the first printing press. 1436. Although he was far from the first to automate the book printing process.
I had retracted my statement about him inventing the printing press.
Right, yes. Right. It was the first one that was invented here.
I said he is the first newspaper media company here that utilized the printing press in the United States.
Oh, okay. Well, the first person to utilize it is different. Yeah. Sorry.
I changed it because I thought about it for a second. I'm like, I didn't think about Europe, but no, the first one in the United States. And he also invented the Postal Service. So that'll give you guys some more room to talk about the post office, because that's my favorite spot, as Brick knows. And that's why I chose it last for the limited forum, because I thought this would be a great topic to talk about.
Cool. And thank you for that clarification, Dub. Yeah. Going back to the idea of our rights being in conjunction with each other, that doesn't mean that they are individually not individual, right? So it's like Siamese twins. Let's take Siamese twins attached to
I understand that. I understand the difference between I understand the difference between speech and protest. I mean, those are two different things. They're two different actions.
Protest isn't one of them.
I mean, but they are two different actions. One, just because one encapsulates one of the rights does not mean that it is the other right.
Right, exactly. So so I go from here to there. That's assembly, right? I have the right to travel freely. That's the idea behind assembly, right? It's just kind of a basic reality that a human being should be able to go about his life freely, right? That's life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. Then we take belief, right? Religion, right? You have the right to believe, right? So that's the basic idea that you should be able to, in your head, believe what you want. Your belief shouldn't be compelled, right? Like some state religion. And so when you couple certain ones together, certain ideas become formulated, but that doesn't mean that they become something else, right? So I know a lot of people believe in the idea of protest. You don't have a right to throw a brick through a window. Now that is protest. I could be protesting and throw a brick through a window. That doesn't mean I have the right to, right?
Well,
I could be protesting and throw a infant into the water. That could be a protest. That's not okay.
Well, so now we're going from one thing to another. Well, how is it not okay?
Well, because a lot of people believe that protesting is a right that we have. We do not have the right to protest. I want to make that very clear. So when you go into the post office, for instance, and you assemble, that means you freely go in there.
You're right. We don't have a right to protest. We have a right to redress our government. Right.
So when you say words in the post office, that is not protesting. I mean, it could be protesting. You could be like, my person doth protest, sir.
It's a median of protesting. Yes.
Right. But I do not have a right to throw a brick through the window. That also can be protest.
Could also be a right to free expression.
But
expression of how I do not like you.
Expression isn't a right. That's my point. These ideas of
but it is, because if you look at we don't have to. So now we're bouncing back and forth between case law and original constitutionalism. You got to pick one. You can't just pick one nilly, depending on the topic you're talking about.
Constitution every time. Constitution. The courts are wrong. I
agree with that quite a lot of the time.
So basic realities like life, basic rights, natural rights, right, are formulated in the idea, in my opinion, what John Locke was proposing natural rights to be basic realities of why it is we shouldn't just put our hands on people and drag them off to a dungeon because they said something. Life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness are some basic rights. And if you put your hands on somebody because you got your feels hurt, that is not any one of those rights.
So you're saying that everybody should just take in all of the information, regardless of what it is, and have no feeling about it whatsoever.
You could have feeling about it, just don't act upon those feelings in a violent manner. Kumbaya, my lord, kind of thing. It's a hippie way to look at it, but you know what?
That's not a hippie way to look at it. It's not how hippies would react or how they would act themselves whatsoever.
Peace and love, dude. I mean, I'm being serious.
I'm gonna protest that we move along and get to your guys' conclusion. So, Brick, we're gonna let you.
We're making the conclusion, bro.
I know that's where I was trying to segue into it myself, but because you guys got 5 minutes each at this point, Brick is gonna start, and then Dub, we'll let you finish it out, and then we'll do a quick review before I go into a recap and decision. As of right now, you guys, you guys are pretty tied with each other. I'm gonna try to decide conclusion. If I can't decide, I'm going to let the crowd decide. So right now, Brick, you got your 5 minutes. Go, sir.
All right. I appreciate you having me up again, BZ and Dub WUBS. You're an amazing challenger. You definitely put out some things that I personally hadn't considered in regards to my views on some of these things, right? I guess I should really consider some of the things you said, you know, especially when it comes to graphic things. I do understand that we are a nation of laws, right? I do believe in rule of law. I do believe it works. We are a nation of, really, though, when we look at our laws, it's called statutes, codes, ordinances. And because I recognize that, I attempt my best to follow those. When those statutes, codes, ordinances do not follow natural law, I'm sorry, I'm not going to follow them. It's just not going to work out well for me. It's just not my thing. But I want to reiterate what I had mentioned in the beginning. I want to read this real quick. It says, this is what I wrote because this is what's important to me. I said, our rights are God-given. Our founders, the founders of this country, recognized this. This is just reality. That's why in the Declaration of Independence, our rights are called unalienable rights given to us by the God of nature. The rights afforded us in the Constitution of the United States are supposed to be considered natural rights, much like the basic rights expressed in the Declaration of Independence: life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. The founders wrote about these laws of nature in accordance with the sensibility of the philosopher John Locke. In my opinion, there are some basic realities that line up with the laws of nature. Things like what goes up must come down. Humans cannot breathe underwater, and that all men should be able to speak freely in order to gain peace about them. I have this deep compassion for those who do not have this peace, and I want to allow them the time to speak to that peace, rather than preventing that means through force, even if it means hearing outright lies or threats. I wish that every man, woman, and child is able to find peace, and not for the reason of force, but for the reason of desire. I too desire peace. And peace for all men requires communication. Limiting communication would be limiting peace. There is no guarantee that people will not be offended or incited due to limiting speech or compelling it, for that matter, and thus becoming incited to violent actions. Hell, I've seen people get angered over silence. Besides that, even the courts agree that words alone cannot be considered criminal. Do not sacrifice liberty for safety, especially to the government. Thank you.
Well, you gave up your time. I like it. Let me start this timer over again. Man, you made that quick. Not full of air tonight. Gotcha. Dub, where'd you disappear to? There you are. Okay, so reset. You got 5 minutes, my man. Go ahead.
Yeah, 5 minutes is a long time to make this point. So the way I feel is that speech is very integral to humans as a nature. I think that the free expression of yourself is very important, and it drives not only nuance but new innovations. I think that the ability to speak legitimately without hindrance from the government because of the word you say is very important. At the same time, I believe that everyone is not created physically or mentally equal, in the sense that there is a point where people can manipulate, foster hate, anger, violence, disruption, chaos by the mere act of words. I think that we have established these laws very clearly. Not all of them right. Don't get me wrong. I don't believe that all laws are legitimate, or do they construe a beneficial endpoint for anything more than the government themselves. I think that the government is the entire problem with speech to begin with. I think that political, judicial, educational, societal, and all these other interims are all due to government's intrusion into our lives. I think that you probably shouldn't be able to gesture symbolically how you're going to hurt somebody, convince somebody, or else, or anything of the sort. I think that telling the truth is of the utmost importance of all things. And I think that with the concept of absolutism of free speech, gives plenty of people the leeway to justify their ability to lie, misconstrue, and slander others. I think that the things that I spend my time on, my intellectual property, are mine. And if I register them as I'm the first, they should be my property at that point, even though they're just words. I think that music, we shouldn't be able to just steal and take. Otherwise, what kind of world will we have if we just had a bunch of people just taking bits and pieces of other people's intellectual design and stealing it? I think that's immoral in itself, let alone illegal at this point in life. I am pretty sure that the legal judicial process would be in shambles if we were to allow absolute free speech to continue forward. We would basically take we'd be able to slander, defamate, and take down anyone we want with no repercussions. I think that we would be able to intimidate any witness, jury, or judge without recourse as we want to. I think that there would be no decorum whatsoever anywhere. I think that the more people and the bigger group we have, instead of having sound arguments, we would have rule by force. I think that the reason why we are supposed to be limited to a certain degree on speech is because of the ability for humans to manipulate the rest of the population with lies, information they wouldn't have before, which may be lies, or whatever it being. I'm pretty sure that we would be in the age of confusion, and we'd be exactly where the CIA wanted us in 1980s. That's all I got to say.
Okay, so I kind of let you go over like 30 minutes there, or 30 seconds, because, Brick didn't use all his time up. Figured I didn't want to stop you. You were on a roll, my man. So, but now you guys get 5 minutes with each other. So go for it. Whoever wants to go first.
Hey, man, here's the deal. It's nothing against you or anything about your views. I mean, I've taken a lot of things you've said to a degree because it makes sense. And so what it does is it reinforms me and chisels my thought process down, as opposed to just a random point of view. And and hopefully I did the same.
Yeah, no, absolutely, man. Yeah, I definitely appreciate every bit of the entirety of the debate / conversation. I do like to have conversations. You know, this is, I feel like, more of a debate forum, but it's almost as if we've had a conversation here. We've attempted to come to an agreement on what is basic realities, right? You know, you did mention something though in regards to intellectual property theft. I wanted to cover that a little bit. I do tend to agree with you. I do believe it should be left up to the civil courts, though. You know, there's an interesting factor here is that what happens sometimes is that people confuse civil versus criminal, right? And so people get their feelings hurt, right? This is kind of actually a good point to bring out. They get their intellectual property stolen or whatever, and that sort of thing. That actually should be taken up with the civil courts. That's what the civil courts are for. The criminal courts are not for that, right? And so kind of to put that point out there is that, you know, we have quote unquote free speech and that sort of thing so that the governments can't limit it, right? However, there are things that should be taken to the civil courts that people forget about the civil courts, right? And so you can sue anything, anybody, right? You can literally sue a ham sandwich. The government will be like, here, let me get that money. And then we'll let you talk it out in court. The ham sandwich will be like, I exercise my Fifth Amendment right to remain silent, you know? But the courts will take that money and let you, you know, argue it out and then put it to the jury, right? And sometimes there's like just a basic, you know, just a judge if it's small claims or whatever. And so people forget about that, right? And I'm not saying just sue anybody. Don't, you know, just have a bunch of frivolous lawsuits because you're, you know, just a money hungry, sue happy type of person. It's not a good idea. You kind of end up as the boy who cried wolf, right? And it kind of brings me back to the point about lying and that sort of thing, right? Why I believe that people should be allowed to, because ultimately people are going to lie. Every man, woman, and child lies. So just to say, oh, you lied, or you even threat, people do it. People do it, right? So every time somebody threats somebody, right, then or lies, we're just going to throw handcuffs on them and drag them off to a dungeon. Well, no, because then we would be known as the aggressors, right? We want liberty and that sort of thing. And those are some just basic realities that, you know, just because somebody said something, in my opinion, just because somebody said something, it's a basic reality for me, doesn't mean that I need to get offended by it, right? And so that is my position, right? I do understand that there is a degree of responsibility that is left to the people. And I actually have understood that very, very much so a very long time. I'm not going to go anywhere and say anything because I know that natural law will take effect. It's just what's going to happen. That's what natural law is supposed to be. It's like just reality, right? But it doesn't mean that I'm just going to sacrifice my reality, which is reality in my opinion. Maybe it isn't. I don't know. Maybe I'm going to say something that I didn't realize would offend somebody, right? Maybe I'm going to say, you know, hey, that's a lot of mustard on your hot dog, right? And then, you know, the guy's going to beat me up for it, right? I don't know. I don't know what's going to offend somebody, right? Maybe, and that would be natural law taking effect, right? But that doesn't mean that I shouldn't be able to say it.
So your preposition, correct me if I'm wrong, is that speech is only verbal and that anything written is called press, right?
Yeah, anything written is called press. Yeah, as in like you press.
So when we're talking about the patents and we're talking about the copyright millennial, was it DCMA or is it DMCA, whatever, the Digital Millennium Copyright Act, DMCA. Well, those are all written, or those were all, at what point do those patents, or does that Now, without what obviously the lyrics of the music is verbal. At what point do those copyrights is that legitimate underneath your understanding?
So the copyright laws, yeah, so the copyright laws, you're asking me whether they're a legitimate statute
Form of speech, yes.
I'm trying to understand it. Like when you say are the copyright laws like a legitimate code to be enforced?
Yes.
How are we
the
enforcing
IP and the copyright laws of music and entertainment? How is that not enforced? It's free speech. I mean, I could steal it if I want, right? Because I'm going to re-speak it because those are my words.
Mm-hmm. So like, I'm not sure how they're enforced though. Are they enforced through the criminal code?
Yeah, federal government, prison time.
Okay. So you can be put in prison for quote unquote stealing just because you
prison,
said
fine, all sorts of shit. Yes, exactly. Asset forfeiture, all sorts of stuff.
Right. So yeah, no, those are illegitimate. Yeah.
So the intellectual property, which are words written down.
Mm-hmm. I mean,
you
can call them property.
So you're telling me that any patent is not. So intellectual property would be like codes, concepts, things like that.
Mm-hmm.
When it comes to patents, they usually have you show a proof of viability for the fact that it would work.
So
at what point does, maybe not the actual process, but does the pictures, the documents that are given to the federal government for the patents, when do they become no longer speech? Or are they all press, in your opinion?
I mean, it's press. It's press. So if I come up with an idea, right, and I've never heard of any quote unquote patent or copyright, right, and I just simply put a machine together, and then all of a sudden one day the government shows up and says we're taking this and all your other stuff too, because guess what? There's a patent on it.
But what if you heard it and you stole it?
How are they going to prove that?
Because you followed it bit by bit. They checked your IP address. They can verify you stole it.
So if they can prove it, right? If they can prove that I showed, like I quote unquote stole something, right? What did I steal?
The intellectual property.
All right, let me put it this way. Okay, the baseball cap. Okay. Now, who was that invented by? You don't know, right?
Somebody who wrote it in a book, I guess. I don't know.
Who drew it, right?
Who filed a patent to the. I don't know who invented it, but I know that there's a patent on it. That's what I know.
Or the top hat, or any type of clothing, and all these designs, right? That have these quote unquote intellectual properties. Eventually, they lose their patent. You know why? Because that's the law.
It's because it's fair game. That's right. After so many years, it's fair game.
Right. Fair use. Eventually it happens, right? And the fair use laws change over time too. So yeah, no, when I look at the idea that you get exclusive rights to what this looks like and that and all that. I'm saying that the government shouldn't have control over that.
So I should be able to sit down, do nothing, know that somebody next door is creating a revolutionary design.
Well, then you've already
done
something.
Right when it's finished, I should be able to just go in and take it and then use it with no with no process whatsoever, because I can take something from
How did
somebody
you
and
get
I
it?
can verbalize, you know what?
No,
It's
no,
not stealing, because it's actually
what you're
not stealing,
what you're
because I didn't
describing.
actually steal anything, because it's not a physical product. It's just
No, what you're
designed and
describing
I
is
redesigned it.
physical action. What you're describing is a physical action on your part. That the guy next door to you created something, and then you went and took a look at it. How did you get that look?
Tell me how it would be stealing.
Look, if he didn't secure his privacy, then that's on him, right? And he opened his windows and let you peer in to see what his new invention is, then that's on him. Now you can look at it and go, oh, huh, I can invent one of those. I got the Willy Bob and I got the doohickey, right? I can put those things together and make a thing, right? Well, you know what? That's on him. He should have secured his persons.
Oh, okay. So that's the next thing that comes to mind, which I don't watch football whatsoever, but one thing that comes to mind is a bunch of the other team was sitting up way across the way, and they had a badass camera, and they zoomed in and they were watching the next play. Is that considered free and fair?
Now we're talking about rules of the game, and you can be disqualified for the game, right?
But there was no rules up until this point, so I'm questioning.
No, there were rules in the game, in the football game, right? There were rules in the football game that said you're not going to get the trophy if you go to quote unquote cheating. That's not the government. That's
well,
not
no. I'm just asking in general.
That.
I'm not talking. I'm just asking in general as a general statement.
If you want to play the game, you got to play by the rules.
I'm asking at what point does it become stealing?
Well, stealing is like a legal term, right? Theft is like a legal term, right? So are we talking about the government?
Theft is a legal term. I don't know. Stealing has a legal term, but is a general statement.
Yeah, but if we're talking about stealing and that sort of thing, and we're talking about the government and that sort of thing, then we're talking about legal terms, right? And why the government should or should not be involved in it, right? We're not going to, talk about, just the privacy stuff, the private businesses, the private home.
No, I understand. I'm not trying to take it off subject, brother. I'm trying to establish a certain doctrine of at what point does it become moral, immoral, and legal and not legal in your eyes? If the government does it, is it okay no matter what? Or is it where does it stop?
The government. Absolutely. Because you get to make rules in your own house and that sort of thing. Now, I also believe that
say it out in the open.
It would be wise to follow some basic realities, some basic respect of others' natural rights, right? So obviously, don't red rum, don't red rum, right?
Well, that's illegal. Not only is it illegal, but it's immoral in every stance of the word. So there's that.
Right. So you wouldn't do that in your own home, just like you wouldn't do that in public, right? So when it comes to
nobody here's arguing about that.
Yeah. When it comes to the government, though, right? We do have to restrict the government. We, the people, restrict the government, not the other way around, right? Because it's the government who comes in and does the atrocities, not the people.
I don't know. That's a weird statement. I'm pretty sure the government restricts more than we restrict the government, and that's
a problem.
And I'm not saying that's acceptable exactly. I'm just saying that's the reality of the situation. So
yeah. So we have to restrict what the government can restrict. We, the people, own this country.
Yeah.
It kind of goes back to the point of what I was making before, is that when you're looking at the people of the city, right? And the city is saying, okay, what do we do to secure our city? We can't infringe upon people's rights. Number one, first and foremost, what can we do to create that security? Well, we can put locks on doors, heavy locks. We can put the blinds down when we got our computers open. We can maybe even, like, if we're really fearful of the type of people that are in this city, we'll put a big old wall and then put a tiny little glass where they get to talk through, you know, that sort of thing. Like there's a lot of security measures that cities do because of the freedoms that we enjoy in this country. Like imagine a different scenario, right? Where we have a king, right? And the king comes through town, and instead of the freedom to just flip him off or say whatever we want, right? Instead of that, we're all forced to grovel, right? That's what we're forced to do. Now consider that scenario, right? And the lack of security that he has to have. All he's got to do is have about 20, 30 men surrounding him instead of securing all of those documents, securing all of that gold through like means of literal like boxes and things like that. No, all he's got to do is hire on 20. That's all he got to do. And those 20 men will follow him to the death because he's feeding them, he's feeding their families and that sort of thing constantly because he rolls through and just takes what he wants by force. We enjoy the freedoms we have because we built the infrastructure for our government so that they can do a job for us. We built the infrastructure. When I say we, I do mean the people who came before us. And I am very
But
much
is that what you actually believe? Or are you, you know, if you knew history, do you think that it started kind of that way and then it actually evolved into the government built it by us? I mean, I'm pretty sure if we actually read history, the government started off with us building the government, and then eventually, which not too long after, the government started building us and created a massive complex of good luck for the fucking Declaration of Independence. I'll tell you that right now.
I do believe that. I do believe that the government made a massive amounts of intrusions. One of the massive intrusions, Marbury versus Madison, right? I believe that was a massive intrusion. And then you move forward to the early 1800s. You got the Vidot style policing where they married the investigator to the arresting officer. Now they both do this. The same person does both jobs. That's a problem. And it comes from the fugitive laws. And then, of course, the fugitive statutes themselves are a problem. A lot of the fugitive policies still exist to this day. I mean, you got chains and the bracelets. That's barbaric, right? And then you move forward from that. You got the Reconstructive era where they basically just started taking property from people, right? You move forward from that. You got the monetary system that was all of a sudden invented in the early 1900s, right? That's a huge problem.
Specifically, yep. Right? Yep. Hey, guess what? When did the Titanic happened? Yeah. Exactly.
And the war machine.
I'm very aware. aware.
And the war machine that came from that as well, right? And then you move forward from that.
At what point do you think that you actually have any true
you only
ability
have
for the government itself? Because I'm pretty sure the CIA runs everything.
You know, I wouldn't say that they run everything. I would say that your individualism can only go as far as you take it, right? If you want a position of
for another purpose.
Yep. If you want a position of power, you're gonna have to get out there. It takes some money sometimes. It's a tough road to hoe, man, and we're not all capable. It is another debate, though, for sure.
All right, man.
Are we good now? Because are we friends again? All right, fantastic. Hey, I got this poll. I got this poll working, and you guys are both tied. I had a tie. Wait, hold on. Your numbers keep changing, so I don't know. I haven't closed the poll out. There's nine votes in there. I'm letting people vote because I'm kind of
only 9 votes. Come on.
I just started the poll literally like 3 minutes ago.
Oh shit!
How long you gonna let it go? You're gonna let it go for a little while, right?
Well, we're gonna go.
How many people came and went after that?
Dude, I mean, we've had some people in here. Right now, Michael Eline went live. That's why everybody kind of dipped.
Gotcha.
I was trying to get done before 7, but since everybody's dipping, I mean, I'm watching these numbers go down. I may just end up in it. I was going to try to do a after panel Q&A, and we can't. Here we're going to bring up OTVO in the house. So
That's my older brother right there.
Yeah, let me. You can hear me all right?
Can hear you.
I can hear you. Yeah.
Tell these guys
Hey.
how they did, how wonderful they both were, and
Well, I'm one that likes to listen to a good debate, a good conversation. I think everyone has a good idea of both sides of the fence, you might say, or both variations of spice. It all goes to that common reality that we're truly just trying to live in peace and harmony. Well, one person shouldn't have to give up an inalienable right to have to prove that someone else is willing to take advantage of that and place hands on you and run you to a jail. I mean, it's that simple. You look at the rights, people are fighting over things that put people in jail. When I sit back and think, and somebody will call me, oh, you're a big chili simp. No, I'm just a guy that doesn't want to see people go to jail because they stood in front of a police officer and filmed. It's got to be the most ridiculous thing. That's about the height degree of having your feelings hurt and then trying to double down on it. But overall, both parties showed the contrast. And it's all a gray area. It's just that one's grayer and the other one's not as gray. And that wasn't to try to play the color card. But with that, I'll take any feedback you have from my comment.
Well, I mean, I think that we're all trying to achieve or attain the same amount of freedom with the same amount of understanding in between. And I think that we've, because of different social norms, socioeconomic understandings, different positions we've been in, I think that we all see life through a different lens. And that I would hope that we all have the same goal in the end to attain, regardless of that fact. And so that's how I feel.
I like that.
Yeah. Well, like I said, some people, I guess, just don't see the other side sometimes. And is it really another side, or is it just another difference that doesn't need to be aggravated at times by some that could say that it's an aggravation? Well, not everything that's done to make attention to something should be treated as if it's a disease. Sometimes it's supposed to be a natural reaction to something. Yes, maybe the hairs on the back of your neck, you might be a little off key, but it's certainly not something that should ever warrant calling up a police officer and having someone hauled away in a set of handcuffs, put in the back of a squad car simply for having said something that they didn't like to hear. Not directed toward them, not directed with offense, not intended to hurt anyone. The viewer is then responsible for what he sees. If they don't want to see it, they don't want to be around it, they have that three choices. They can stay and they can watch it, or they can run, or then they can act on it inappropriately. And it's just a matter. You hear this a lot. It's common sense, but somebody's common sense is not going to be exactly like someone else's common sense. No more than I'm going to be exactly like you, or I'm going to be exactly like anyone else in the world. But there are commonalities that exist not only between this panel, but between states and governmental agencies and countries. And they still have to have the ability to communicate using the English language and, having the ability to go and communicate with people on an intellectual level. I'm not going to say that I'm the most intelligent person in the world, but I have lived a little bit of it, and maybe don't always practice what I preach, and I'm not preaching, but some will say that I am. It's just an interesting world that we live in, and how we are relegated to YouTube to try to communicate that to the best of our abilities. Yes, we do have phones. Yes, we're trying to get a message across. I think everyone can agree that, and correct me if I'm wrong, Dubs. Can you give me a reason why you wouldn't want to see cops stopped from placing hands on people unless the actual crime that they committed warranted them?
Well, I mean, I never said anything about jail or anything. I mean, I just said what was, what's law now, why it should be, and I never explained or even hinted or even elaborated, not one time, why what response or crime or anything that you should endure. I mean, that never happened. I think that, especially if it's just words, I think that if it was egregious enough, it should be warranted with name, address, blah blah. Give me your name. Here's the ticket. Now you have to leave. If you do not leave, or maybe not even leaving, maybe the option. That should, the whole arrest thing for any willing reason is ridiculous. Because I don't think that most people who have an opinion about it have ever been held in handcuffs. They've never spent a moment in a cop car. They've never taken their time to jail. They never had to deal with bond hearings. They never had to get out. They never had to deal with being on bond. They never had to deal with being, essentially what for me, how I feel is I was essentially forced to plead guilty to something because everything else in life was going to shit. And so it's either fucking suck them off and do what they say, or just stay in here longer and longer and longer. And the longer I'm in there, the more my actual life goes to hell, and which is exactly what happened. It's exactly where I'm at right now. So, if it wasn't for my brothers and my sisters and the people I've built up over time having my back, which is still not enough because they're doing their own life, because life is crazy right now. It's still rough. If it wasn't for that though, I wouldn't have made it this fucking far. So
Right. That's the way I am too. Move through too many people to be worried about what other people are saying.
Well, I appreciate your answers, Dub. Like anything else in the world, you can always practice your Fifth Amendment. I'm assuming we're still live.
We are. We're getting ready to end it though.
All right.
Well, I was going to tell you, if you're going to, by the way, I put it in the back chat too. If you're going to drop a link for the StreamYard or anything, you'll have to pin it, because otherwise people won't be able to click on it.
Yeah, I don't know how to pin all that crap, so
Okay.
I'll have to figure it out another time. But
yeah, maybe you can do another panel sometime about something similar to.
I got another live going on in 40 minutes, guys, because I've got to do a fundraiser to help somebody, so I got to get off here. But appreciate you guys all coming on.
Well, thank you, BZ, for having me.
Yeah, for the 5 minutes you've been on, appreciate it. For the 2 hours you guys have been here rocking and working on getting this ready for the week, appreciate your time. And Dub WUBS, I support you, man. I know you're in every chat, and I know you've got some things you've got to deal with coming up. And keep us posted, man. Hopefully everything works out for you. And if you need some help, we need to do a fundraiser for you. Let's see what we can do to help you out, man. Brick, appreciate you coming in as always. I've got no winner, to be honest with you. I was hoping everybody would take the poll. In fact, where is the poll at right now? Let's look at the poll. I'm gonna go based on the poll tonight. Brick Jonesey is here. Let me do this. Yes, because I didn't know how to get rid of the yes and the no. Yes was at 6%. No was at 22%. Brick Jonesey's at 17%, and Dub WUBS is at a big whopping 56%.
So Dub WUBS, you win.
Doesn't matter.
Me
Thank all the
personally,
people, but it's all good, man. I mean, I appreciate the conversation. We're all we're just given different points of views, and then other people are there to make their own decisions, and we can go from there. I mean, I would suggest that everything I said tonight was based off of some remedial information. When I say that, because I can't show any actual proof of anything. So do your best, and regardless of anything, do your own research.
well, what I like to do is tell everybody to hit that like and subscribe button. And make sure you get over to Dub WUBS' channel. If you haven't done so already, hit that like and subscribe button. Get over to Brick Jonesy's channel. Hit that like and subscribe button. Go over to Let's OTVO. Hit that like and subscribe button. And if you guys don't know who Keebler Danger is, we're going to be doing a fundraiser and trying to help her get monetized. She does a lot of stuff behind the scenes at 8 o'clock. So make sure you get over there and hit that like button at least. And yep, that's all I got. Brick Jonesy, I think you're the only one left that needs to say something. So,
yeah, sure, man. I appreciate you again, and I appreciate everybody in the chat. This has been a good one. I believe we covered a lot of good topics surrounding, maybe another debate is in the future for Bzwatchdog to cover. That'd be great. I like this format. I like the way you handled this one. In regards to my quote unquote loss, Dubs, you say it's not a loss because this is the conversation. This is what it's about. And I do agree with that. I would say in regards to my point of view, I'm sorry you guys aren't ready for freedom yet. It's not my fault. That's your fault. Stop getting into your feels, right? If somebody cusses you out and you don't like it, don't put your hands on them just because you didn't like the way that they talked, right? If they were holding up a sign, don't just grab them. Don't ask the police to grab them, please.
Yeah, don't meet them at the North McDonald's.
But Dub WUBS, you did bring some very good points. And like I mentioned, you brought some things to my attention that I personally hadn't really fully considered. I maybe considered it a little bit, but perhaps I could consider it a little bit. I still hold my position. However, if my position were to ever be changed, it would probably be based upon some things that you said tonight. I do believe that you are interested in freedom, maybe not absolute, because you do see some reason why some things should be a little bit more secured. And I can believe that that is a good thing. So I appreciate your time, and thank you as well, BZ, and good to see you, Let's.
Thank you. Thank you.
All right, guys.
Yo,
I'm gonna
Bricky,
go.
let me tell you something real quick.
Okay.
I would advise rewatching that and then find at least, it had to have been at least 3 times that you made my point for me. So maybe look at those, agree, disagree, maybe change your statement, maybe understand that. But there was at least 3 times that you literally proved my point, and during debate. And so don't get me wrong, the point is not to win. The point is to make the best case possible, and then change your mind if you're wrong. And there was a couple things that I changed my mind on. So there's no loser here. You know what I'm saying? I'm just saying there was a couple times where you admitted, maybe check those out, read, refine what you're saying, make sure that you're saying what you wanted to say, or maybe, like I have done on a couple of things, just accept that that's how it is, No hate here, dude. I really don't. Your life, I won't say it won't change my life, because it's not like drastically, but I mean, it will, it's definitely put a couple of things to the forefront of my mind. So now I'll think more.
I appreciate
Not good
that.
or bad, though. Not good or bad.
Same here, bro. Same here. On both sides. Same thing. Same exact thing. Yeah, I appreciate it. Excellent conversation. Excellent debate. Thank you.
And look
Yes,
at that.
sir.
April Rain with 1999. So I think she makes up, and for all the votes, and Brick Jonesy wins. Just kidding. I'm just kidding.
Hope that's not the way it works.
What's up, April? How you doing? Yeah.
Did
So
you see my?
Awesome. I love
you
it.
gotta
see my
go to you going to never mind, I'm not gonna say nothing about it.
Get it?
Send me the link if you're going there.
All right.
All right. Well, I'm gonna get out of here, end stream. But anyways, appreciate you guys coming in, and we'll see y'all on the next live stream. Thanks, April. Hugs to you.
All right, Brick. Let's BZ.
And your
Peace out,
items are
y'all.
coming in the mail.
Nice chatting, you guys. Thanks.
Another great product brought to you by TAP Security Products. Streetwise Security Products has manufactured another fine product brought to you by TAP Security Products. This is the Falcon 5-inch spring-assisted Second Amendment knife. It's got a 3-inch handle with a 2-inch blade that has the Second Amendment of the Bill of Rights etched and engraved into the blade, as you can see here. It also has a seatbelt cutter along with a glass breaker at the very end of this knife, along with a beautiful American flag handle. The Second Amendment knife retails for $19.99. Right now you can buy it through till the end of Christmas online at TAPSSECURITYPRODUCTS.com for a low special price of $14.95 plus tax and shipping. Again, that's TAPSSECURITYPRODUCTS.com. Get your products and stuffing stockers now.